the great Oscar debate, everything that's wrong with the awards, plus new Bryan Singer's sexual allegations, Alyssa Milano's MAGA hat controversy, Sundance's shocking Michael Jackson documentary, all this and more on Meet the Hollywood Press for January 27th, 2019. I'm Morgan Leigh Willett in for Alina Vission, and now your host of Meet the Hollywood Press, Joseph Kapsch.
Happy Sunday, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of Meet the Hollywood Press. Welcome, Morgan.
Thank you so much.
That was beautiful.
Thanks,
You're
guys.
in for my Alina, and I thought I could never be happy with anyone else but Alina, but that was beautiful.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you for doing this for us.
Of course. I'm so excited to join you guys.
Yes, so for viewers of Meet the Hollywood Press who may not know you, although we have a lot of reality viewers that do watch our show, Morgan is currently starring on MTV's X on the Beach.
Yes.
And she won Big Brother season...
It was Big Brother Over the Top. So.
Big Brother Over the Top. When you were just telling us off camera, tell us the dramatic thing that happened.
Oh my God. So I was one of the last people in America to find out that Trump was our president.
Yes.
So the election was going on when we were locked away in the house. Julie Chen comes on TV and is like, "Who wants to know who's president?" We're like, "We do." And then she's like, "It's Trump." And everyone, literally, our reactions were on CNN. So go look at that clip. It's classic.
How many people were left in the house at that point, roughly?
I want to say 6 or 7.
Was it a divided group, or was it all like... across the board,
Julie Chen literally asked and goes, "Raise your hand if you think Hillary Clinton is your new president." And all of us were like, 100%. Well, we had missed everything that had gone on, so we moved in a month before. So the last I heard was she was in the lead. So I was like, 100%.
100%, yeah.
And then lo and behold.
Wow.
I have a question, even though I haven't been introduced yet. And people are like, "Who is this guy?"
Oh, really? Who's this guy? Who's this guy over here?
So a month before the election, that was roughly about the time the Grab 'Em by the Pussy tape came out. So I was curious, were you in the house when that came out? So you were completely unaware of all that?
So I was unaware of a lot. So when I got out, 4 weeks later, I had a lot to catch up on. But surprisingly, the thing I was the most shocked about, which I said this in an interview and I want to punch myself in the face. I was like, Kim Kardashian was held at gunpoint? Like, that's what I'm most curious about. And they're like, shut up.
What are you going to do? Well, now that you just totally stepped on my intro of you, thank you so much, Greg Gilman.
Hi, I'm Greg Gilman.
Today on the show is Greg Gilman, entertainment journalist and lead singer of Greg and Good Company.
Yes.
Indie rock band here in LA who's burning up the scene, I'd say. You're on local radio
currently
now.
on 88.5 FM,
The
Single Monsters Lair. New
There
album, American Way, out now
Shameless
on Spotify,
plug
all that
alert
stuff.
at the top. The journalist connection here, Greg and I have worked at several places. He was my right-hand man at TheWrap, running all the morning news, and this is actually like our first time reuniting on this show since you shot the pilot for me. So thank you.
Yes.
That great promo where we were
funny promo. I got in trouble for shooting that promo at a company that I recently left that shall not be named, and now here I am. Now I can be here. I'm
Welcome
free.
back. This is going to be great. So let's just dive in. There's a lot of topics to discuss. Really quickly, though, I just want to say it was kind of a bad week in media, and since we are Meet the Hollywood Press, sort of want to send good thoughts in out there to but the BuzzFeed employees that lost their jobs, the Huffington Post employees. It was kind of a bad week in media, just in terms of I just don't like to hear when any talented journalists are out of jobs. So sending good thoughts. I'm sure they're all going to land, but I've been there, and it sucks when you're out of a job. So not a good week in media, I would say. Yeah. So anyway, Bryan Singer allegations.
That was a piece, if I've ever read one.
Let's get this
That was an
out of the way.
expose for sure.
What was so well written, though, when I was reading this, I could not put it down.
Yeah.
The fact that they spent 12 months on it, I'm like, applause.
So just to back up really quickly for audience who haven't maybe read it, it's gone farly wide. The Atlantic did a Ronan Farrow style investigative report that they spent, like Morgan said, 12 months on, and it was 4 accusers coming forward, telling their story. I believe 2 on the record, 2 remained anonymous.
Yeah, Andy and Eric, I believe, were their code names.
Exactly. And just about alleged rape, alleged sexual assault, just shenanigans that had gone on for years. Bryan Singer, we should say, because we need to say this, vehemently denies the allegations, the report, and says it's the work of a quote-unquote homophobic writer that is out to get him. Because, I mean, anyone would really want to spend 12 months of their life on that vendetta for So I'm just going to start off. I felt like, the aftermath of this was that Bohemian Rhapsody, which he was the director on, but then got fired at the very end, which is getting award buzz, and Rami Malek is the favorite
contender for Best Actor.
Yeah, to win for Best Actor. He GLAAD pulled the award after this article. There's two sides. GLAAD goes and pulls the nomination for Bohemian
GLAAD Media Awards.
Yeah. Then on the other hand, the movie's currently working on Red Sonja. Announced that they will keep him. Thoughts?
Well, it is. I'm curious to see whether Bryan Singer truly remains attached. These things tend to get bigger and bigger, as we've seen with Bill Cosby, as we saw with Weinstein, and generally, based on the reporting, seems like he was pretty active in these alleged activities, if they're true. And it sounds like there's probably a lot. There could be a lot more people out there who might come out of the woodwork, whether they're telling the truth or not. And it could I think it's going to get worse for Bryan Singer.
Yeah.
I would not be surprised if he goes the way of Kevin Spacey.
Yeah.
Because initially Kevin Spacey was not fired either. It wasn't until 15 more, and including House of Cards Netflix employees said, yeah, he's grabbed me too, and then he was gone. So I'm curious to see what happens in terms of I don't think it is fair for GLAAD Media to pull Bohemian Rhapsody, because a movie is more than just a director. A movie is the sum of hundreds, if not thousands, of people working together to create this product that they believed, and they spent, some people spent years on this movie, and a lot of people like it. What was interesting is before these sexual allegations, there was this controversy. People just don't think it's a very good movie, so they're surprised at how much attention it is getting from Oscars and Golden Globes.
Did you see it?
I did, and I actually really liked it. And it's so funny because I have a friend who's very active in the gay community, and I went to go see it, and he was like, "Are you kidding me?" And this was before anything about Singer came out. And he was like, "You don't support that movie. I don't support him." I've heard so many of my friends who have had issues with him, and I was just like, once he said that, that's when I kind of stepped back, and I was like, maybe I should reevaluate this.
Well,
my gay friends just didn't appreciate the way they portrayed Freddie Mercury.
That was the issues that I heard about the movie. So it was more like what I hear about it is just like the movie's flawed, but the performance of Rami is so powerful.
Incredible.
He's amazing.
So he stands out from it. Okay, so I want to go back to this GLAAD thing because I have a theory on it. I don't think that I think that was more a push for GLAAD to put pressure on Bohemian Rhapsody, the studio behind it, to distance themselves from him. Because at this point,
but they already did. They fired him.
They fired him, but doesn't he technically still get credit on these awards
because of DGA rules? And he did direct the majority of it. They did 3 weeks
so there's because you would think in this Me Too era, the way they're like stripping everybody they could kick him out of DGA, correct?
Yeah, people can do it
like the way they kicked out Bill Cosby from the Academy, and they stripped him of the. Okay, I think the GLAAD thing is more a sum of all parts. I will say why. Bryan Singer is very similar to the worst kept secret of Matt Lauer for years, the worst kept secret of Harvey Weinstein. I think that GLAAD are people that are also gay.
Well, Harvey Weinstein was actually a best kept secret. I mean,
I felt like it was worse kept. You think so?
I mean, considering how long he was active doing these things, I think they kept the secret pretty well, actually.
I guess that's kind of true. I think it was maybe you started to hear rumblings about it. They were nosing around maybe 3-4 years before the stuff actually broke. But you just would hear that he was a tyrant. But not to digress. Back to the GLAAD. People in the gay community have talked about this for years. That the parties at the house with the young boys and the this.
Well,
and
this was a huge story when we were at TheWrap together.
Yes,
back in 2014,
exactly.
right? With Michael Egan.
So remember that story. So what ended up to me giving Bryan Singer a pass? That guy, unfortunately, that came forward ended up being a liar and doing it for the wrong reasons and was proved to be a liar. But now you come out with this other report. At what point? I guess what I'm saying is there any cases that we can point to where there's the innocent guy in Hollywood that 5 people have come out against and say, hey, innocent guy, we're just going to orchestrate and take you down? Because he's denied. That's what starts to become isn't it strength in numbers? Has there been any guy that's been accused with more than 5 to 10 women, if it being a guy, or that have turned out to it not be true?
Certainly there was a flurry, there was a big rush of people tweeting, this about this actor, I went on a bad date with this guy, and the media, in my opinion, got quite reckless pretty quickly and just, someone tweeted an allegation without actually talking to the person, and Jeremy Piven was notably one of those people who had several people come out against him, and he fought really hard to be to clear his name, and nothing really went further with him, but he's one of those guys that I think fought off the allegations, and no one has really been able to prove it. And it's such a hard thing to prove.
Yeah.
And I think we all have our own line in the sand that we're gonna believe something. There's a credibility, right? And for me, it's usually a lot of people. Bill Cosby's like, oh, Bill Cosby, no. And then once you get past a dozen, I was like, well, okay, maybe Bill Cosby is a rapist.
Yeah.
Because it's a tough reality to face for Bryan Singer. I love X-Men. X-Men is my favorite superhero movies. I love his movies. I love Bill Cosby. I love Bill Cosby.
Yeah.
So it's it is a hard thing to reconcile as a fan who you spent your entire childhood, looking up to these people, to learn that there's something beneath the surface.
Morgan, as a female perspective, looking at the Me Too at large movement too, there's statistics that say there's so little of a percentage of a woman that actually would make this up, and there was a point being made online where it was name me 5 of blank's accusers, and this is a year later, and you can't name the women. Women don't do this to be famous, right?
No, 100%.
Yes.
I mean, you just want to put yourself, I feel in that light, and that's not something you would want to be known for fame.
No.
You can do it some other way. So I think for someone to come out, one, takes so much courage. To put yourself, and that will follow you.
Yes.
So I just don't think anyone in their right mind would do that for fame or glory or whatever. It's true. And I think for anyone to come forward, they're not lying. But that's me as a female who.
Well, that's what I'm saying. And just so then also just say from a female perspective, say with your girlfriends, do you believe that there's then, because this is how I've also heard straight males try to defend themselves. They'll say,
you talking about my people?
Yeah, your people, bros.
My fragile bros?
The bros will say it's buyer's remorse sometimes with a girl. Meaning some of these are they had sex when they were drunk, or they maybe thought it was going to go somewhere. Do you believe that exists? And do girls ever think that exists? Is there a level of that amongst? Because it's what guys use. And I always say to them, I'm there's 2% of cases where you could prove that a girl is lying.
The Duke Lacrosse case is a really big one that she was lying. And that's a really good example of when allegations get out of hand. And for the longest time, I thought those dudes were guilty. And I watched this documentary. And the documentary does a great job of really, you don't know what happens till the end. And I wasn't familiar with the story. And I'm like, these guys are definitely guilty. Screw these frat boy assholes. And then the end comes, and you find out the woman was lying. And the reason she was lying, because she didn't want to admit she was drunk, might lose her kid.
Yeah.
And then it's oh. And then all the people who rushed to judgment, the apology, oh, whoops, we were wrong, that doesn't get any attention. No one cares about the correction.
That's true.
And that's why Fox News does the news the way it does, because they know people don't care about the correction. But so that's a really good example of when it's there's a media pylon, and then, they were lying.
I definitely do think there are situations like that, for example, where I just think it's such a small percentage.
Small percentage, for
I
sure.
don't think it's the majority, but I will say, as a woman, I have heard of stories where females have been I was just really drunk, and so I think that does happen. But I think what's important now is people can speak out.
Yes.
Whereas in the past, if that did happen, it wasn't that they were trying to cover it up and all that. They just felt like they didn't have a platform or couldn't speak. So I think now that's what's so important about women in the movement right now.
Exactly, and that's what was echoed last week. We had two of the Empire writers and producers, females, on the show, and we were talking about just these issues at large, and they said the biggest difference was agreed, even with Alina, my co-host, was that you can speak about it and not be as scared anymore. There is a certain level of some people do get scared of career retaliation, but nowhere near you can be very open
and the
about
Atlantic piece, what I loved about it is it really broke down, it mentioned stuff like that where it's we talked to these people, but they did not want to go on a record because they still fear career retaliation.
Yeah.
And so there's a number of people working in the industry, still working there, that have spoken out but done so anonymously because they still fear retaliation.
Yeah.
And another thing to think of too is, like, me personally, my philosophy is I don't know.
Yes.
And so I don't discredit accusers, but I don't say they're telling the truth. I truly have no idea. I wasn't there. Like I said, it's strength in numbers. You start hearing the same. Well, okay, that's pretty hard not to kind of believe that.
Yeah.
But I will say that, look at the guys who went on the record here. They're in their 30s. This has clearly been weighing on them for quite some time.
1,000%.
And they know that people are going to say, well, why didn't you say something 10 years ago? You know, why are you doing it now? Oh, you want to file a lawsuit because you see other people doing it. But clearly this is something that really did traumatize them in a lot of ways. And the article does a great way of kind of giving a summary of their life story and kind of how it went off the rails after the abuse.
Yeah.
Which I think is a total, like, I buy that as a result of it. I mean, you are destroyed as a person if you're victimized in that way. And so that, to me, you know, definitely I think people should strongly consider an accuser, but I don't necessarily think you're in no position to say he's telling the truth. But I'm certainly not going to say he's not.
So I'm just gonna we're gonna move on from Bryan Singer because we've got a lot of heavy sexual allegation stuff. Like I want to get through before we get to the Oscar
Actually,
stuff.
I want to real quick piggyback off what you said. You know, you don't want to come out as if you don't want to be known for that. And I'm not going to get into it. This is not going to be my platform to do it. But I was a victim of molestation when I was a kid, and it's one of those things where you don't want, like, I don't want that to be my life story. I don't want to make a big deal about that. I don't want that to be oh, he's the guy. Like, I don't want to.
You don't want it to define who you are.
Yeah, so I totally understand that reservation. I don't think anyone in the right mind, either you're crazy and vindictive, right? Mm-hmm. That's one motivation, and you're just doing anything you can to screw over someone. But for the most part, you don't want to come out and say something horrible to happen to you. It's a brave thing to do, and it's a scary thing to do, and it's not an ideal thing as humans that we want to do. So.
No, it's true. Okay, so the other story here is the Michael Sundance is going on. We're actually very happy to be nice and toasty in a studio in Hollywood rather than
not in Utah.
Yeah, I've done you did Sundance. Have you been?
No, I haven't.
Have you?
No, I've never been there.
Okay, I was there once and never again. I was like, it's like if you're going there to work when you're actually, it's for me personally miserable. It's just like it's cold, it's miserable. You got to go from one end of the town to the other. If you go there for fun, yes, it's enjoyable. So like when you get to like hit up all the parties at night, that was the only part that was fun. But the working while you're there,
I would not want to go as a journalist. I want to go as a filmmaker or just go to have fun.
That, well, of course, that would be because that's like it's like your passion. Okay, so the Michael Jackson Leaving Neverland documentary debuted, and it is the reviews I'm reading and the reaction I'm reading. It sounds pretty horrifying. I should say up front, Michael Jackson's estate and some of his family have come out to vehemently rebuke the entire documentary and say that it's opportunistic people that had come forward before, and that it's Wade Robson and why is the other guy's name
Safechuck.
Yeah, Safechuck. That they were involved back in the day when Michael was still living, and that that either Michael was cleared of those allegations or that they defended Michael even against other ones. But now it's like the families, and this is like you said, years later, the families, from what I read in the very graphic reviews, like on IndieWire and everything, it's pretty graphic. Like that.
There was one line in Variety's review talking about the groans and moans and just like gasps coming from the audience the entire time. So that's pretty telling.
Yeah.
When you hear an audible reaction in a movie theater for something like that's not like a laugh or a scary scream, that's pretty telling of how affecting this is going to be.
So how do you think this, like there was one part of one of the reviews that said you'll never listen to, after you see this documentary, you'll never listen to Michael Jackson's music the same again, or maybe not at all. I can't wait to see it personally. What's your thoughts, Morgan?
I have chills thinking, even reading the reviews, I was jaw to the ground.
Yes.
Because, they broke down he had nooks and crannies, and then reading about how the drills he would do where he would ring a bell to make sure no one could hear.
Yes.
I had chills reading the article, so I can't even imagine 4 hours of a documentary like this. It's just insane.
That's the thing that I feel is very troubling. Like they always say as a journalist, right? the level you can tell your gut when you're talking to a source. Your gut is one thing, but then the level of detail that people remember, only remember that level of kind of detail when something is 9 times out of 10 true. So to me, it's like, where would they get all these details? Like who? Like
Right,
why
a
would
closet inside a closet.
Yes.
You wouldn't just make up a fact
Yeah, and,
like
and they
that.
back it up by they show. I'm sure they give a tour of the estate and they find these. They show the audience that these places exist. They use footage to do it. So backs up their claim.
What's your theory? And again, we're not therapists or psychiatrists, so we can't do armchair diagnosis here. But I was talking to a family member about it, right? And this is just like a family member, and I said, "What do you think?" And it was interesting when you hear they're like, "I think that Michael Jackson truly was like sick and thought he was a 12-year-old boy." And that maybe in his mind he could there be anything to that? Like, was he aware of what he was doing? Was it like?
I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters. We'll never be able to get.
I'm not
inside his
justifying
head.
it by any. But I'm trying to get inside because in one sense you see this kind man that seemed like he was so generous. He was so.
But so does Jared Sandusky. He was a nice guy too.
That's true.
So. And a lot of times that's how they get their victims is they're being nice to them. Oh, you're so great. Let me take care of you. Let me shower you in gifts.
Yeah.
That's a very common thing with molestation.
Yeah.
So it's just like, it's called grooming. And so it doesn't, at this point, nothing surprises me when an allegation. But I will say this is interesting. So every one of these major documentaries that are coming forward with allegations and this Bryan Singer story, right? You have R. Kelly making huge waves. R. Kelly was prosecuted for having sex with a 14-year-old on a tape and peeing on her. Yeah. And he was acquitted in 2008. There's been multiple stories that have gone. BuzzFeed did a couple great articles on it, right?
Yeah.
So I've already known all this, and then this documentary comes out, and it blows it up, right? And then you're going to have this Michael Jackson thing. Obviously, he was on trial for this. I believe that Wade Robinson, I believe the two people in the documentary did defend him at the trial. And then only recently they've come out with their own stories. But wow, what a power of documentary in this decade.
Documentaries used to be just I learned something new, and now documentaries are full on really exposing
It's because there's nothing strange. There's nothing. Truth is stranger than fiction. So it's like we're really this is really compelling content. But it's just crazy that the work that these filmmakers are doing is really doing good work for the victims.
Oh, for sure, and it's cathartic for the victim.
Finally getting people talking about the way it needs to be talked about for the problem to be. Come anywhere close to being. The
interesting thing, though, about this is that, do you remember, though, when Michael Jackson had died, and then there was this whole wave of, people feeling like he was a martyr again, and, all of that was forgotten, and, we should have been there for him more. We should have, and it's I don't know. It's just we've been covering these stories now.
Hey, Michael Jackson could have called me if he wanted to. He never did. So I don't feel guilty about it.
It's because you have Macaulay Culkin, for instance, who still to this day
defends him. He says he was never touched, and he's very close with Paris. He's his god. He's Paris's godfather.
Is it fair? Wait, is that for me? Oh, okay. So anyway, the next thing, Terry Crews on and
it's interesting how it all connects too, right? We're going to Terry Crews, who had an allegation.
Yes. Well, Terry Crews on Twitter right now, moving on from that. But again, just to reiterate, Michael Jackson's estate, as I said at the top of the story, vehemently denies all of the allegations.
And we'll never truly know. It's hard to say for sure. I'll never know until there's a video,
Yeah. So one more story here before we move on to some lighter fare. Terry Crews, who's been a big champion of this movement and came out against an agent from,
I believe it was it CAA?
It was one of the top talent agencies. It's escaping me. He won. The guy got reprimanded and I think suspended for a while. But Terry Crews has now been on the front lines of really saying men need to be a part of this Me Too movement. Men need to hold other men accountable. I guess he was just getting into beef, like right before, as we were getting over that, you pointed out, with D.L. Hughley and 50 Cent, because they were kind of like mocking.
50 Cent, yeah. 50 Cent likes to make fun of people on his Instagram and whatnot.
So I guess what are both of your thoughts? Like, I think Terry Crews is the man.
First of
like,
all,
I love that he is so vocal and like goes out, like he will speak on everything, and and it is men's equal responsibility to hold men accountable. That is still why we have this problem.
Oh, I 100% think it's amazing that he's speaking out. And I mean, it needs to be said. Why, just because he's a man and he has muscles, can he not speak about this? And I'm like reading the tweets, and I was going back and looking at them.
Can you read them real quick?
Yes,
let
me pull them up.
There's like a series of 3, I believe. There's like perfect trio of tweets.
So Terry Crews tweeted to D.L. Hughley and said, "You told the world God gave me muscles so I could say no." I guess there was some kind of radio interview. "Are you implying I wanted to be sexually assaulted? I'm listening, sir." And then D.L. Hughley responded, "You saw the video." And then Terry continues and said, "Sir, you said I should have pushed him back or restrained him. I did all of those things, but you act like I didn't. Were you there?" And D.L. Hughley then responds, "That's different than slapping the shit out of him."
Yes, but then didn't he finally respond back and say, "Should I slap the shit
Yeah,
out of
yeah.
you?"
Is that what I do?
Terry, mic drop, and then responds, "Sir, if you truly feel that is a correct way to deal with toxic behavior, should I slap the shit out of you?"
Yes.
I'm like, yes, thank you, Terry.
Thank
Good
you.
slap back.
But don't you agree that aren't you totally team? I'm totally team Terry. It's like
I love Terry.
It's like I get it. It's again, it is toxic masculinity. It's like a man like shaming another man for what, like
For not
acting
being,
properly
for not
and
a stereotype of masculinity. Oh, you got to be tough and beat the hell out of
yeah,
them.
it's just.
And I can tell you, listen, I can tell you. I had an experience coming up my 1-year anniversary of going to jail for the first time in my life because I had a landlord who, no joke, tried to kill me. He tried to run me over with his truck twice. He came out of his car. I happened to have a chain on me, and I punched him in the face with the chain a couple times till he went down because he came at me saying, "I'm going to kill you, I'm going to kill you."
Yes.
Cops come, I get arrested. Okay? So
This feels like another
here's a white guy in
episode.
America, right?
I think we need to cover this.
Cops arrest me. But my point is that Terry is completely right. Where if he would have slapped the shit out of him,
he could
if he
not.
would have beat the guy, he would have got arrested.
It would have
Exactly.
changed the whole thing. It would have changed the whole dynamic. So that's why it's stupid. And by the way, 50 Cent is actually was a very lovely person. When I did a shoot with him, and like for all the talk about him being like, you know, kind of, there tends to be some black male celebrities that with the homophobic, and it's kind of like they're raised to like that's not correct. So there is a certain level of that in the community there. But he was like couldn't be cooler. So it is surprising that they go like there's just no reason like support each other.
And
right?
also too,
Exactly.
it's not just this issue that he's been on the front lines of in terms of talking about preaching against toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
He's written a whole book about his past as trying to be Mr. Tough Guy, cheating on his wife a bunch of times, being addicted to pornography. And he's gone on to like talk shows and talked about this. So this whole thing with the agent is just one element of it. That's because it's really in the zeitgeist right now. But
Yeah.
he's been very open the last like probably 5 years, if not longer. And I really look forward to reading that book because he seems like a really wise guy who's really taken his life, reflected on it, and said, I can change. I should change. And he's an example of that change.
Yeah.
And he's such a funny guy. He's such like an aspirational person.
Very likable.
I would love to be Terry Crews. I love
Yeah.
what a great guy to be. I think he's a great role model. We need more people like him.
I just think men need to check themselves across the board because Team Terry. Okay, so let's move on to Alyssa Milano wrote so it started out like this. Alyssa Milano, after the Covington student protest controversy with the Native Americans that happened, and I will say, I've had arguments for a week on Facebook. I do believe the media did screw up that day. As I said, they rushed to judgment. They should have waited. They should have looked at more taste. But we know that we live in this world as journalists. Everyone's got to get the story out. And I think that we live in a very...
Well, not just as journalists. We're so, as a culture, we're so reactionary.
Reactionary.
We see a video and it's like, immediately we have an opinion.
Now, she is an activist, and actually, Alyssa Milano, for all the talk when, like, you'll have, like, commentators on certain cable news channels say, oh, just shut up and dribble, or just act, or don't get involved. She's a very well-read person on politics, so I don't believe that celebrities are not allowed to talk about politics. That's my personal
That's crazy.
opinion.
They're
We're
American
all
citizens.
Americans.
100%.
I think
Everyone should be
anyone
allowed
can
to.
talk about whatever they want to talk about. So she tweeted out after this thing saying the red hat, the Magna, Make America Great Again hats is like the new white hood.
Yeah.
The KKK, you know. So after a lot of backlash from one half of the country and then support really on the other half of the country about it, she wrote a really powerful op-ed in TheWrap, and she's basically, instead of like a lot of celebrities, she got piled on Twitter for saying that. She stood her ground. And by the way, I respect that. Mad respect for her. So she basically, I just want to read like a little quote from it, but she basically was saying, so when I saw that video, I saw boys flaunting their entitlement and displaying toxic masculinity. It seemed to me like they were reflecting the white nationalism and racism that the hats on their heads have come to represent. So I sent out a tweet that read, the red Magna hat is the new white hood. Right-wing pundits and anonymous trolls alike screamed for my head literally and figuratively. My husband received death threats. Here's the thing, I was right, so I won't apologize. No, it's just she's sticking her ground.
And she makes a really good case further down, too, where she lists the things that the red hats were at.
Yes. So what are our thoughts? Do we all kind of agree? So we move on, because if we're not, if we're all in agreement, I'm going to be like, yay, Alyssa.
I think it's obviously white people hate being told they're racist. Guys,
Yes.
as we can tell by the Gillette commercial, hate being told to be better.
I thought that was a great
I loved it.
thing
and,
to do.
And
Yeah.
I watched it once and I moved on with my life. That's
Yeah.
what I think most of us should do. But it struck a chord of people, and I was just having a conversation with a buddy last night who's offended by it. And
By the Gillette commercial?
by the Gillette commercial. And it's, to me, it's just very amusing at how easily feathers are ruffled, and then those same people are telling people, who are offended, or who have actual things to complain about, and then they say shut up and dribble or something. You know what I mean?
If we only just lived in a society where we just kind of just worried more about ourselves.
That's such a foreign concept.
I know,
to
right?
us.
And less about our neighbors. But social media has just changed the game. It'll never go back to
Twitter. Yeah, Twitter's the root of all evil.
It is.
It's Pandora's
If I wasn't
box.
a journalist,
It's Pandora's
I
box.
really wouldn't want to use it. It's like we're forced to.
I was
that's
just
fair.
on a
We're
vacation.
forced to
100%.
use it. Like it's like we're forced to use it
You
because
have to.
it's
You got
like
to be
you have
in
to.
a know. You got to know what the national debate is, a dialogue. But
It's
it
the
is
most
exhausting.
toxic. Like I do out of all the platforms, I feel like Instagram has less toxicity. It's more picturey. It's more
Right.
More just like 100 emojis, fire,
Yes.
your profile's lit, click here for more followers.
Facebook is extremely polarized now with the politics arguments, and then Twitter is just troll armies that
Right.
get
I
to
feel
attack.
like Twitter's the place where you can hide the most. You can
Yeah.
hide behind a wall and tweet and say all these awful things. It's like, especially like, well, I'm just on a reality TV show. Like, you don't know me, and I'm the last person you should be spending time tweeting nasty
Yes.
things about. So it's just like, people need hobbies. That's what
They really
everyone in
do.
America needs a hobby.
It's
not
so
social
true.
media.
It's very true.
Truth, Morgan.
Like music.
Truth.
People should consider picking up music. Maybe funding music
Okay,
education
no
for children.
more shameless plug alerts. You got one in the beginning. Okay, so let's get to the great Oscar debate. The great Oscar debate. So me and him worked together. You might have to ref a little bit because. So here's the thing. The overall, we're gonna totally talk in like non-specifics here, but just in general, we started to get in an argument because you hear all this talk every year about, okay, so the Oscars, the ratings are going down. How do we get younger people to watch? How do we? But then year after year, and we've argued about this, I feel like Hollywood is tone deaf on like the films that they start to celebrate. And it's like, yes, if you're a filmmaker and you're like a cinematographer, you're going to have a different appreciation than like me, which is like, I'm like a top 40 popcorn movie guy. For me, if
So
I
you're
was
the most qualified to talk about the Oscars.
Yes, because if you want people like me to watch the Oscars and care, you need to stop like nominating these elitist movies that only the industry cares about or gets. Like, they're not accessible. Like, if it was up to me, Black Panther would be Best Picture.
Mm-hmm.
Black Panther would have a bunch of acting nominations. Black Panther would be the winner. But it's like, instead, it's like, no offense. And I'm sure, like, Roma is, I get it. The cinematography is beautiful. But everyone is acting like Roma's like the second coming. Like, oh, and he's going to win director. But it's like, how many people in America were going to see that movie before Hollywood started to love it? Go ahead. You got the floor.
Listen, so much to address here. First of all, the Oscars don't care about you. They don't need to. The Oscars aren't for people like you. That's the problem with them trying to worry about ratings. They should not worry about ratings. The Oscars celebrate great cinema. And listening to people whose favorite movie is Transformers 2 and Paranormal Activity, and they, you know, they're not the Oscars shouldn't be trying to target them. They are not the most sophisticated cinema watchers.
Then why air them? Take them off the air. Stop putting them on the air.
Yeah, I don't care what they do.
Joseph, I'm on your side on this one.
Yeah, because we know in Hollywood, we get it. There's a for your consideration business. I've worked in the trades. That Hollywood is like, that's where all the dollars are, because it's like this campaign to promote your movies, and it basically keeps the, you know, like a lot of people in business. So yeah, the Oscars still make money on broadcast, but then just call a spade. Then just knock it to an hour, give out the awards. Stop trying to make it like you're ever going to get younger people to be interested in this award show.
I agree. They need to stop caring about people like you.
Yes.
And alienate them completely, because I'm tired of hearing your opinions on Facebook or Instagram about it. So I think I mean, listen, the Oscars is a celebration of filmmakers decided by filmmakers for filmmakers.
On Friday
and they do. They have a great Oscars lunch.
Have a nice, just like,
bottom line is, it's also, people look at acting the same way people look at sports. So, my favorite, Leonardo DiCaprio, you're rooting for him. He's your fave the same way you're rooting for Atlanta Falcons or the Patriots, whatever. And it's still a national spectacle to people.
Yeah.
And the benefit of having an award show, that why they should, is because it highlights movies like Roma, for example, which is the best movie I've seen this year, hands down, for a lot of reasons. And it highlights the stuff that most people would skip over because they see a black and white trailer and they go, well, boring, next.
Just like The Artist. Do you even remember The Artist? Like that one, too.
I actually never saw it, but it's
terrible.
You know, whatever.
with that whole season, Uggy the dog. I'm just sorry. Year after year, just like it's.
Then don't watch the Oscars. This is your problem.
I have to watch them because I'm
them.
an entertainment journalist. But I think it's like I'm jaded.
I'm not watching
I'm
this year.
jaded
I can't
at
wait.
this point that I'm like so over the Oscars, and now it's like, are they going to have a host? Are they not going to have a host? Who really cares at this point? How about?
Well, apparently a lot of people, because if you put that in a headline, it clicks. So apparently a lot of people.
Oh my God! It's going to be probably the worst rated, whether it has a host or doesn't.
Here's the thing. People hate the Oscars every year. It is a lose-lose. Even when Jimmy Kimmel crushed it, even when you had a great ending.
Jimmy Kimmel's awesome as a host.
He was
and
great.
It's still, the ratings went down.
And people still complain. There's still going to be people, reviews, well, blah, blah, blah. He shouldn't have handed out those sandwiches. And it's like, listen, we had the best Oscars ending ever with Warren Beatty naming the wrong movie.
True.
I was like, oh, wow, this is the best award show ever.
But nobody would have cared about, like, that literally, in a way, killed, saved the Oscars that year.
Yeah, it was fantastic as a spectacle viewing.
Yes.
But again, the Oscars are a celebration of good, truly the best cinema of the year. And I'm sorry, Black Panther is a good
one of the
movie.
Best movies.
It's a
of
good
the year.
movie. It's a really good
Best
action
movie ever.
Really
Best
good
movie
superhero.
ever. Black Panther.
You know, hey, listen, I'm not bummed. The Goonies is the best movie ever made, hands down, and that didn't win any Oscars. You don't see me complaining about it. But listen, I mean, in terms of the 10 films they nominated, I would take First Man to me deserved. That was my only
Can you name
snub.
the last 5 Best Picture winners off the top of your head right now? The last 5?
No, because I don't care.
But that's why, because they're forgettable.
Argo won. Argo is a great movie.
No, the last 5, the most recent 5, probably not, because they're forgettable. I can't name them.
I can't even name the movie I saw 2 weeks ago.
Unless you're like unless you're an awards analyst.
Twitter's
in
scrambling
Hollywood,
my brain. I can't remember this stuff.
If you're an awards analyst in Hollywood, or you're paid to do this and pay
No,
attention
if you truly
to it,
love cinema.
and you love cinema, you'll know that kind of stuff. The rest
Which is
of the
who
public,
the Oscars are for.
Then I guess this is what my issue is with it. Probably more with our journalists that write articles about like the Oscars caring about the ratings. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's my beef.
I don't
Maybe
think
my
the
beef is
Academy
misdirected.
should not care about what the public thinks of it. You should do it. Whoever tunes in, tunes in.
So
it's
then
still
stop
gonna,
even trying to have
listen,
like a
Right, that's my issue. It's like they try and make it this big like event, but if they don't care, then do it an hour and don't get all these
That's
celebrities
what
to
I'm
come.
saying.
And don't
Well,
freak
listen,
out about a host.
It's just like, okay, I'm gonna plug my music real quick. I'm gonna write a song. I'm gonna write a song. I'm gonna put it out there, and I don't care what you think of it. I'm happy with it, and you know, I figure if I like something, people are gonna like it, and they do. And, yeah, they do. And but it's like you're putting too much You're worrying about it too much of the ratings, and then they're worrying about it. But really, at the end of the day, the benefit of winning an Oscar is not so much your speech, whatever. It is so that they can re-release the movie in theaters again in a wider release. They can put Best Picture of the Year, and you know what it is? It's validation. Yeah. Because the average person doesn't truly have taste. They have levels of validation. So, a blog wrote about this, I'll take it more seriously. Vanity Fair wrote about this, I'll take it more seriously. Oh, it won an Oscar. Whoa, I better check this out. But that's the benefit of winning an Oscar, and that's why they do these awards.
But never like this moment in time, and maybe it's because the world at large has shifted so much. I do believe that when I think about working in trades like 10 years ago to now, never has awards felt so in flux in a way that only Hollywood is still like grasping on to like the award season that once was. Meaning like you have eroding viewership on all the shows across the board. You have all of the streamers getting shows nominated, not even broadcast in the game, but then they're still airing this eroding show that gets. So here's my point. No, wait, let me make this point because I'm going to lose my train of thought. The Oscars, as you knew it, basically like there's two missions, because there's like the network trying to get ratings in young people, and then there's like the filmmakers who just care about like the art of film. And to me, that's like not melded together is what the thing is. And then people try to.
I mean, you're still going to try to put on a good show. You're still going to try to get people to watch it, right?
Yes.
So, but I can't fault them for that. I would want to do the same thing, even if I'm not going to take the criticism seriously and go, well, whatever.
But here's what else has shifted. Even like the red carpet shows now, because we're in this Me Too era, we're now even in an era where the fashion fluff is like. You had an article in like Vogue saying like that's not cool to ask about that anymore. And it's like if you're going to ask about it, if you're going to ask what a woman's wearing, you need to be asking what a man's wearing. It's I think why E personally is like their show couldn't be more boring the last 2 years than in history. Mm-hmm. Because I think there's some female audience that still care about that stuff, but at large when you think about the world, I just don't think it's like it plays.
Right.
Well, again, social media gives everyone a platform to rant and rave and say whatever 240 character opinion they want, no matter how much, whether it makes any sense at all, whether you're a credible source to even have that opinion, whether you're well informed. Yeah. And I think people need to stop taking that so seriously. You know, just because people are crying out doesn't mean you need to listen to them. It is your award show.
If it was up to me and I ruled the world in Hollywood,
it's a scary world to live in.
It would be one big mega award marathon show, like one Saturday.
But here's the thing,
I like that.
Movies, TV,
brother,
all of it. Knock it out in one day and air it on all channels and all streamers.
We have MTV Movie Awards. We have Critics. We have People's Choice Awards. There are award shows for the popular films.
They're all terrible.
So why are you trying to make the Oscars into a popular movie?
I'm not. It's all the articles, I guess, that shit up my feed that I have to read. Anyway, on that note, Morgan, thank you. This has been such a pleasure.
Thank you, guys.
But I want to have you back sometime so we can really dig in, because now we're fascinated about all the behind the scenes of your shows.
I can go for hours and hours about all the tea that is reality TV.
Oh my God, Greg, thank you for coming to plug your
Pleasure.
music.
Thank you. It was great. Greg, Good Company, American Way, streaming now.
And thank you for watching. And you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Spotify, obviously Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Tune in next week. I have a special Grammy episode with some top-notch journalists from the industry coming to break that down for us. Thanks a lot.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.